Hi, everybody. You're watching Star News right now. I'm Mark Childry coming to you from our studios at WGSR 47.1 in Reidsville. Welcome to our viewers watching us on WGSR and those watching us on WMDV 44.1 and 44.2 in Martinsville and Danville. We've got a lot of news for you from all across the region. Coming up in just a little bit, the press conference that was held earlier today in Blacksburg, Virginia concerning shootings that happened there. 2 people, including a police officer there. That's where the news media has centered their attention today. It happened earlier today at around lunchtime there on the Virginia Tech campus in Blacksburg. That's where a police officer died, being shot during a traffic stop, and apparently it happened by an individual who just walked up and shot the police officer. A little while later, a second individual found dead. Now the speculation that the second individual found dead on campus may have been the shooter that took the police officer's life. Star News' own Bob Sharp was at that news conference there earlier today on the campus at Virginia Tech, and he asked questions regarding this shooting situation. And here's the question that Bob posed to the panel of law enforcement and campus officials.
Let's just keep going.
I've got one question. If the,
and
tell them who you are, Bob.
Bob Sharp with Star News.
Okay.
Since you don't have anybody in suspect, you let off the alerts, you consider this case, other than figuring out the details, is basically closed?
I wouldn't say closed, no.
In terms of harm to the public, is someone that we should be looking at?
I'd say when the university lifted the alert, they consulted with several people, and they felt like it was safe to have the students and faculty go about the rest of their day. So you can, I don't like to say assume, but we like to think that, you know, things are safe for people to be out here again.
Bob, let me put it a different way. The police leadership, who the incident commander, in conjunction with everybody else that is on the scene, and I'm going to read it, have said law enforcement agencies, because there's more than one, have determined there's no longer an active threat or need to secure in place. And whereas
all right, and there you see those law enforcement authorities there, and including the officer that you saw just a moment ago, who said there that apparently this lockdown had been lifted, and they are, you know, you can maybe draw your own conclusions from that. Star News' own Bob Sharp is still in Blacksburg. He joins me by telephone from the campus at Virginia Tech. Bob, let me go back to the question that you asked just a few moments ago and the response from those law enforcement officers. Does this mean possibly we have 2 people dead, a police officer who hasn't been named, the police officer involved in a traffic stop? Apparently this individual walks up, shoots the police officer, and then leaves from the scene. Later, a second body found. Can we assume, Bob, that the person who shot the police officer and the body found later, all the same person?
You can kind of draw that conclusion by the way they lifted the safety ban. They kind of moved to that, and obviously they're trying to put more of it together. I think the question will be whether there's some sort of established relationship between the shooter and the police officer getting killed. It's just such a bizarre incident, and they're real tight about that. I've talked with some of the Christiansburg police, the other law enforcement that are here, and they're from all over the state of Virginia. Tell them how sorry they were. They're really closed mouth, any details. But I got the feeling that it was an officer that's a veteran that had been here for some time, a few years anyway. I was trying to find out if there was any children or family involved, but they really wouldn't say much about it. And they're still on the scene investigating it. They still got it marked off. They brought some extra lights in. We did go to the crime scene. We believe to be the one that was the second victim that was found. They said a weapon was recovered, but they did never acknowledge what kind of weapon, only to say that it was a weapon.
And one of those people there alluded to the fact that a statement issued by Virginia Tech officials said there was no longer an active threat. So you have this police officer, then you have an individual. The suspect was described as a white male wearing gray sweatpants, a gray hat with neon green brim, a maroon hoodie, and a backpack. And then we have the second person found dead, a white male with a gunshot wound. So, Bob, I think a lot of people, much like you and others, have put this together and say they're putting together 2 and 2 to come up with 4, and they're saying, hey, this could be the same person.
Absolutely. And I think that's a reasonable conclusion with the way the evidence, what it supports, and the fact that when they lifted that van, they felt certain. I think maybe initially they thought there could have been a second person with a second gun. They just didn't know what they were dealing with. And of course, these officers have been extensively trained. There's been special grants because of what happened with the massacre before. And it seemed like they did this just like clockwork, and everybody felt real confident, and once it was lifted that things were safe. But there for a while, I can tell you it's pretty hectic.
Bob, it was just 4 years ago that this same campus was the location of the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. 33 people died, including the gunman that particular day. Students, a faculty member, and the gunman died there on that Virginia Tech campus. Surely this has to be a day when a lot of emotions from 4 years ago came flooding back to that same campus.
That, and also, you know, they had a police officer that was shot and killed on campus. That guy was, they eventually caught him, brought him into custody. I'm not sure what the status is on him, but I mean, there's been obviously a lot of tragedy up here.
What's the mood there, Bob? It's been about an hour. I know that you and Dick Jansen are there. You're doing some interviews and you're doing a lot of footage for video, but what's the mood there? I know you've had the chance to talk with people out and about there on the campus and there in the community, not only on the campus of Virginia Tech, but there in Blacksburg too. What's the mood?
They're just really real somber and not real talkative. And you know, I just asked them what I thought was kind of questions like, well, where were you? You know, how did you get notified? How did you feel? A lot of them had brought back memories of the massacre. Some of them said they were glad that they left campus. But there for a while, they just said they didn't know really what was going on, other than there'd been someone shot.
Bob, what about the what are you hearing there? What are you hearing from people in the community when they're talking about this? You said the mood is somber, but are they saying that memories of 2007 are flooding back, or are they just trying to take each one of these instances as they come along? And hopefully, I know they're wishing that all this would just go away.
Yeah, definitely. And I can ask them about that question. You can just see it in their face, and they say, yeah, absolutely. We think about that. So we think about that all the time because they lost so many people up here. It was just such a massacre. Do
we have any kind of timeline, Bob, when they're going to announce the name of the officer who died there on the scene today, or the person, the second individual who died? I'm assuming now, and this is just from past experience, I'm assuming that we're probably not going to get any more information tonight. I'm assuming it may be Friday before more information comes out.
I'm looking at sometime maybe around the 11 o'clock hour that they might release the names. They may not give a lot of details, but I think certainly by then they will have notified the family. And the state is very meticulous about when they release things. They like to have at least some information to go with that. But I think in this case, because of the national attention, you will probably see them release the names, and they'll wait till tomorrow before they do any comments. There's probably still more testing. They're probably still interviewing more people. Again, you know, they're going to follow up to see if there's some relationship between the shooting of the police officer and the person that did the shooting, that sort of thing. So there's still a lot of people I'm sure they need to talk with.
All right, Bob, I want to ask you, this was the first time since 2007 that the entire Virginia Tech campus was put on lockdown. What are officials saying about that lockdown? Were they pleased with the way things were handled there today?
They really were. They were pleased that the students that were on campus did what they were supposed to do, and that was to go in and lock their doors. And like they said at the press conference, this place is huge up here. I mean, there's apartment buildings and neighborhoods that come into this place. It's actually impossible to do a total lockdown. The most important thing was getting the information out, what was going on. And they've got a system that, of course, they said one of the best in the nation of doing that. And it was, I think, very proud this time that system just went off flawless.
All right, Star News home Bob Sharp reporting from Blacksburg. Bob, I know you'll have a lot more on our newscast on Friday, so we'll look forward to the interviews and the information you can bring back at that time. So we will talk to you then, and be careful on your way back.
Yes, sir.
Star News' own Bob Sharp reporting from our from the campus there of Virginia Tech. Again, 33 people died on that same campus back in 2007. In today's events, a police officer dies, another individual found dead on campus, and there seems to be the possibility that the person who was found dead, the second individual, may even be the shooter. We don't have a lot of information, but we're assuming and hoping that we'll have more details to give you on our newscast on Friday, so stay tuned to Star News.